What you describe, Grant, is really common, and that is that there's no such thing as a separate dating life. Everywhere you go, you carry you with you. And so the problems that we experience in dating, we experience at work, with our kids, with everything. And it all comes from, people think I'm being hyperbolic. I'm not. It all comes from what we didn't get when we were kids. So my backyard looks like a state forest. I get my exercise in doing yard work. And if you plant a plant in the wrong place, or you don't nourish it right, or you plant it wrong or at the wrong depth or whatever, it's pretty screwed for the rest of its life. And that's regrettably without help. That's true with human beings. So as a human being, if we're not sufficiently nourished when we're young, we grow up constantly trying to fill ourselves with something that makes us feel less pain, or constantly defending ourselves, which is why women, for example, believe that men are obsessed with sex. Wrong. Guys don't even realize that they're not. What guys want, I mean, men discovered, I hate to tell everybody this, but men discovered thousands of years ago that there was a way to get sexual release without women. I know, who knew? But the thing that men want is that during sex is the closest they've ever been to a human being. They weren't held and loved and cuddled when they were little, and now suddenly they're being held by this person whose face is this far from them. They're being touched all over, and they're going, I really like this. It's the connection they like. But we don't know another way to get it. And so we use, sex, porn, power, being right, being angry, blah, 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 whatever. And whatever we use that isn't the real thing always fails, because it's not what we were made for. And especially people who have a spiritual understanding know that we're intimately connected with the source of love in all the universe, with God. So if we were raised in a way that was separated from that, we feel separated, period. We just don't feel connected. It's a really terrible way to live. Most marriages are doomed from the word hello. I talk to people every day who perfectly meet the criteria for Match.com, blah, 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 blah. You can love to canoe together and play table tennis, but if you hate each other, it turns out those activities aren't nearly as fun. And the reason we end up disliking each other is because our expectations. So I meet somebody and they give me some attention, which just feels so much better than being alone. And my expectations are, oh, wow, she's going to keep doing this. And she does for a while. Then we might make the nearly fatal mistake of having sex. Well, see, now my expectations are going to go through the roof. This person is salvation. But it turns out it's a carnival show. It's an illusion. We have to fill that original emptiness that we had, which we can learn to do with each other, but is almost impossible to do with somebody that we view as a potential dating partner. Do you understand what I'm saying? If I look at you as a potential dating partner, well, see, that's a whole different thing. Now my expectations are explosively big. Whereas if I get my unconditional love from another guy, where I'm pretty sure that you and I are not going to end up, hugging and kissing, just feeling unconditionally accepted by you, it gives me that feeling of connectedness and fulfillment, which is what I've wanted from the beginning. So that's what we teach people to do, is is to find that original feeling. Sometimes they come all the way to Georgia and spend several days here just to get that feeling. That's it. Because if you've never had it and it happens briefly, you don't even recognize it. It just shoots right on by. But once you know what it is, you can get it from other people. So, for example, you live in Washington State. There is a group of real love people who meet every week in Washington State. Actually, I think the host is taking a month off or something. But here are 12 to 15 people who every single week get together and simply love each other without an agenda. That's what happens in dating that screws it from the beginning. If we get together with an agenda, you're going to make me happy, you're going to be my partner. Oh, crap. See, now, without meaning to, I'm going to do things to manipulate you to like me. You're going to manipulate me to like you. I'm going to lie so that you will like me. You're going to lie to... We're done. You see? Which is why most people describe dating as a confusing nightmare. Those are the two words, by the way, as I've surveyed thousands of people who date. Those are the two words used most common. It's confusing and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, true.
And without help, are you kidding? Because everybody in the world needs this love. And what everybody thinks they want is this. I want this girl, this guy with a great looking body who makes a great living, blah, blah. Well, turns out that these two are unrelated. So here we're vigorously looking for one thing, and that's not what we really want. Not a formula for success. So real love is really about learning to be a happy person first.
Right.
I have a son who is, forgive me. With my kids, I just do ranges. You know, they're between 35 and 45. I don't know. And he looked at the condition of marriages in the world, and he looked at all these people that he met at singles wards and so on, and he went, this isn't it. And so he held out. I mean, he just sort of laid back and watched. He dated a little here and there, and he was probably 33, 34 years old before he'd pretty much given up. And one day he was talking to another girl who I think is a year different, same age. And he's describing, you know, what he's looking for. And she went, "You're kidding. That's what I'm looking for. Somebody who could do that." And they said, "Well, let's consider, let's try getting together for, who cares, whatever, hot chocolate, whatever you call it." And they discovered that they really liked being with each other without having an agenda. And see, they'd both given up. Get it? They didn't date to become partners. That was key. And now these two have this richly fulfilling, synergistic, happy marriage that just makes me giggle to look at. It's just not what the books describe. It's not what romance novels show. It's not what Match.com describes. It sounds like a almost impossibly arrogant thing to say, but everybody's got dating wrong.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, can I ask you a question or two? I mean, you can keep going, but
bring it on. I actually talked too long. Sorry.
No, we love it. It's awesome. I just, specifically for this book club, we've got a lot of people who, like, this is the first they've ever read of yours. I mean, everybody besides Angela and I are, brand new to you. So one question that I had that relates to what you're just talking about is, how do I know when I have enough real love to date healthily?
So this is going to sound a little counterintuitive. When you don't have a feeling that you need to have a partner, you're ready to date.
Okay.
it's kind of like being on a diet and going to the grocery store when you're starving to death. You're going to come home with pork rinds and chocolate and, so pork rinds because I live in the South. But you've got to feel relatively whole and happy yourself. Now, yes, finding a partner adds to your happiness. Holy smokes, it's simply incredible. My partner is the queen of the universe. But without her, I would be happy.
Okay.
And would have absolutely no desire to replace her. None. I'm already a happy person. Are you generally loving toward other people? Are you happy with who you are? Are you free of, this one will just kill almost everybody listening. Are you free of addictions? Now, when I say addictions, people go, okay, I know the alcohol, drugs, porn. Oh, no. We're just warming up. Those are the little ones. No. Are you addicted to being a victim? No matter what anybody does, they're doing it to you. How could they treat me like this? Are you addicted to being right? Are you addicted to talking, to getting attention, to being angry? Those are what?
To outrage.
Yes.
I say Americans are addicted to outrage.
One of the biggest addictions on earth that I initially, when I started writing nearly 30 years ago, that I underestimated is drama.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all the political stuff that's going on. The facts, here are the political positions taken by these different people. Oh, we care a little bit, but let somebody say something off mic about somebody else, and we lap that up like cats and cream. I mean, but bring on the drama. I mean, all journalists know that if it bleeds, it leads. We love what it does is it gives us a simulation of being alive, when inside we're really kind of dead. So yeah, you're right.
Well, good. I appreciate that. Okay. One that is a little bit, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around is telling the truth while dating. And the reason why it's hard is because I am in extremes. I do extremes, right? So for years and years, I just didn't tell enough. I, played the perfect part, and I whatever. And then when I got divorced, and I'm like, look, I'm done with not being seen. Like, this was even before I've read your books. I just was like, I'm just going to be seen, and I vomited on everybody and said too much too quickly. And so, and then you come and advocate, telling the truth to who you're potentially dating and whatnot. And so I wonder about the balance of, you talk about starting small and seeing if they can tolerate it, but can you go into any more detail about that?
Oh, yes. So in the beginning, you actually, you start small with everybody, but in your case, you would start with men, not women. You start with men. You tell a little bit of the truth about yourself. You say, yeah, in my last marriage, because how easy is it for us to say, yes, in my first marriage, she was such a witch, or blah, blah, blah. Who cares? No, you say, I was such a selfish pig. I didn't pay enough attention to her. You say that to a guy, and if he says, yeah, how about them Seahawks? Clearly, he's not the kind of guy who's interested in the truth about you. So you do that until you find a guy that you can vomit all over. Somebody who just accepts you. There's no hugging or kissing. You may not even talk to him in person. Somebody that you practice being yourself with. Then, armed with that experience, then you go out on a date, and if you look in the dating book, I have pages of examples of, here's an example of telling the truth to a dating partner, pages of it, pages of questions to ask your partner. A really useful question to ask your partner is, so what happened in your last two serious relationships? Just describe. If they start blaming, guess what? You'll be next. Uh, so so here's the distinction. In non-dating relationships, you practice telling the truth about yourself so that you can feel seen, accepted, and loved. Got that? In a dating relationship, you initially start telling the truth not to feel loved, but to gather information. Dating is an ongoing job interview. No kidding.
Totally. I totally agree.
Totally is. And so Angela, you and I are dating, and what I do is I say, yeah, my first marriage really went badly because, frankly, I didn't know how to be a loving husband. And you go, really? So where do you work? And I go, well, I'm not going to give up. I tell another little truth. I have a child that I have who has a particular behavior problem, or blah, blah, blah. Pick always some slightly less than flattering thing. You don't have to go, vomit the whole thing. But if you respond with, whoa, nobody ever talks like that. Right. And then I tell you a little bit more. And then you start to get into the swing of this with me, and we start to exchange actual truths about ourselves. This is a promising beginning. But we're gathering information. People think that you date to find a relationship. Wrong. Because what we do is we go on a date and we try to make that person like us. Well, you're doomed before you even meet. No, you want to learn who that person is. You want that person to learn a little bit about who you really are, which has nothing to do with the questions on dating sites. And that's how you find a partner. See, you first have to be one. That's why you practice with non-dating partners first. Now, if you happen to know a woman, like in your case, if you're a guy and you happen to know a woman who's just totally a friend, you can practice doing it there. In fact, that's really useful because now you get a kind of a female perspective. I tell guys to find a gay woman and practice telling it with her, because now we have no sexual confusion, and you get to practice being yourself. It's so two entirely different purposes for telling the truth. One to feel loved, one to gather information. Did that help?
Yeah. Absolutely. It kind of leads into another question. So I love the concept, and it was a radical concept when I read it initially about, I'm going to just paraphrase, like dating to eliminate. Like you want to knock people off your list as quickly as possible, right? Or not list, but and it feels to me, I've seen it in a number of people, especially LDS people, where we just nurse the relationship to death. We try and like inch it along and fix them, and I can make this work. And so that it's kind of counterintuitive for us to be just like, nope, you're gone, like as quick as possible, right? Can you talk to that at all?
Oh, you bet. I mean, when let's say that you want to eat the perfect apple, and so you come to a tree that's nearing the end of its season, and these days they raise apples or crisp from birth to death. It's unbelievable. But in the old days, there was nothing worse than picking a red, delicious apple. You both know what those are, right? Mm-hmm. And you bite into this flawless looking apple, and it's already applesauce. It's just gushy. Well, you can sit and you can chew at that thing all day long, and it's not going to turn into a crisp apple. So you throw it away and you look for another one. That's what dating is like. The son that I was talking about, his wife, who was in her mid-30s, she'd gotten to the point where she said, I just can't find guys who I'd want to spend a lifetime with, much less forever with. And so she'd gotten to the point where she really took seriously what I was saying. A guy would say to her, so would you like to go out? And she would stop. She would look him right in the eye and she would say, do you now have or have you had in the last 5 years anything that resembled an addiction to porn? She would just ask them that first thing before she knew their middle name. And they'd go, because the answer isn't in the yes or no. The answer is in the pause. And they go, and she'd say, no.
Wow.
There's nothing to apologize for. You two don't have a relationship. She would just go, next. And when she said to my son, so do you now? And in fact, in his case, she said, or have you ever had? He and I talked about this subject regularly. Even though he's in his mid-30s, I'm going, you're still my kid. Have you ever had a problem with porn? And he went, never. Have you ever had times when you were not active in the church? And he said, oh, yeah. There have been times when I've gone, is it worth it? But no, I've stayed away from the addictions. And she went, well, when are we getting together?
Mm-hmm.
Because see, have you ever been inactive? Who cares? There are different things that happen in your life that just knock you off your horse. But addictions, they're tough. If in a conversation, for example, somebody is right about everything, they correct everything you say. Oh, that's going to get way worse when you get married and now they have a written piece of paper that says, I own you. It's the addictions you watch for.
So when you're like getting rid of people like that, when you're like, nope, I guess it can be daunting because you're like, well, I'm eliminating a smaller and smaller pool of potential people.
Yeah, it could look like that. But see, it's like saying, well, but I'm eliminating all the rotten apples. Who cares? One of the big mistakes people make when they're dating is what they put themselves out as. Oh, I love moonlight walks on the beach, blah, 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 guys particularly. Well,
And pina coladas.
yeah. Blah, blah, blah. No. One lady, let's see. I've got to remember this story correctly. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie called The Big Short. It's about a financial crisis. Doesn't really matter. But one of the characters said, they said, you're kind of a socially awkward guy. So how did you meet your wife? And he said, well, I went on the internet and I said, I'm 35 years old. I've never been married. I'm a bit of a loner and kind of socially awkward. And she said, when can we meet? And later, as their relationship progressed, he said to her, that wasn't a particularly flattering profile. Why did you choose to date me? Because he said, she's social and happy and everything about her was just not him. And she said, easy. You were the only person's profile that I've ever read that was honest. You could tell right through the page, can't you? Oh, I love the sunrise and, and I hike Everest every day for fitness. And, sometimes I can be a bit of a clod. I've been irresponsible in the past, didn't do very well with my first relationship, but now I'm learning what it's about. I'm learning what genuine love looks like. Hey, I'm interested in that person.
Yeah, awesome.
Can I say something?
Oh,
okay.
Bring it on.
So it's interesting that you mentioned like this is the only profile that you consider honest, because I have an issue with that, or something that I've discovered over my past couple of years of dating. I'll talk to some girlfriends of mine, and I'm thinking of one girlfriend in particular, and she started dating this man, and within a week and a half, she was just over the moon. She says, "Oh, he's so open and honest. He's the most open and honest man that I've ever dated." And I'm sitting here thinking, you have known this person for 10 days. You have no idea if they are actually open and honest. You know what they're telling you right now, but you need to put in the time to give this guy opportunities to not be honest and see what happens. So for me, I don't think I would ever, and I realize this, whatever worked out for the person in the movie, but I would hesitate to call someone honest right off the bat because I actually don't know that. But after 6 months of dating, okay, now I understand maybe this person is honest. So, because it is true in the world. So my first experience dating, I had been divorced for less than a month and I ended up with this man and we're kissing and we're having a great time. And it turns out he was married. He had a
Yep.
wife at home and children that he left at home and was kissing me and kissing all these other girls. So, do you have any advice, I think, on the amount of time, or I don't know, just that process of determining honesty? Because in dating, we get a lot of dishonest folks that look honest.
Yep. So the first component of honesty you have to look at is yours.
Okay.
So if you go into a relationship mildly desperate and dying to hook up with a guy who's honest, you're doomed.
Mm-hmm.
He will fool you every time. And you brought up the subject earlier. You used a different word than drama. What was the word you used?
Outrage. We're addicted
Yeah,
to outrage.
yeah. Outrage, drama. You go in and you find an honest guy, and notice what your girlfriend said. Oh, I just can't believe it. He's just the most open and honest. Do you see the drama?
Yes.
I'm already hooked into the drama. I'm done. That's the purpose of the Real Love and Dating book, is that it calmly takes you through. If two people can't finish the entire Real Love and Dating book before they even have a thought about being a couple, then they're not going to make it. Because the book, what it does is, instead of me waiting for you to tell you because see, some people have this really polished. Narcissists, particularly, who are like very clever, are actually referred to as seductive. And that doesn't mean necessarily sexually seductive. They draw people in by saying whatever they can see in the other person's eyes they want to hear. If honesty's the thing, they pour on honesty. But I can take a narcissist that I'm not interested in dating, any narcissist. Just pick up the dating book, take those questions. Now, ask them questions that require honesty where they haven't practiced doing it. They fall right on their face. So that's the purpose of the book. You ask them things about themselves that are like uncomfortable. So tell me how you screwed up your last serious relationship. They don't know how to be honest. Now, that doesn't disqualify them, because you got to remember, almost nobody does know how to be honest. So you give them an example of what truth telling looks like. And you say, so can you think of anything in your relationship that contributed to it not working well? See, give them a chance to learn what honesty is. If you expect to just run across a completely emotionally honest person, good luck. But they can learn to be honest. And the willingness to learn is actually the biggest single quality to look for in somebody. Mm-hmm. If somebody's willing to learn to be unconditionally loving, who cares where they are now? Making sense?
Yeah. That does require time. Like, you have to put in time. We're not talking about eloping after 14 days of knowing each other. We're talking about 6 months to a year or more. Yeah.
My son and his partner, they dated for a year. They really got to know each other. Even though I told you a story from a movie just to make a point, those two didn't just suddenly get married either. They did the rest of the honesty, process. It takes time to really get to know somebody, and you almost have to slightly push them off balance with those questions.
Right.
I had a friend once who said to me, I don't think people are as angry as you think. I don't know what made me do this. I've never done it since. I just reached up. He was talking to me, like standing in front of me. And I just reached up and slapped his face. And he just exploded. And I said, angry like that. We're either angry or we're this far from it. That still counts. And so dating is it's kind of like an emotional wrestling, not to win, but you learn something about a wrestler by what he does when he's off balance. And so dating gives you time to learn that information.
Right. When you put in the time. Yeah.
You have to. It really takes time.
Yeah. So here's one that kind of piggybacks off of that. So, we're LDS, we're members of the church, and there are lots of people in the church that just, they go to Heavenly Father and they say a prayer and they say, Heavenly Father, is this my person? And I'm in the temple and I feel the Spirit. And when you know, and there's nothing you can change it. And we've all known people who've gotten engaged after a month, and we all know people who have gotten divorced from people when they were engaged after a month. So there's this thing where we pray about it and the Spirit trumps all rational thought. So how can we kind of balance this as we're dating? Or is it like, should we not ask and not pray about it sooner? Should we, I don't know. How can we be smart? How can we be smart?
I sometimes wonder if anybody's read the first part of the Doctrine and Covenants where it says you have to work it out in your own mind and then ask if it's right.
Okay.
You have to do your own research. I'm an old man now. One thing I have learned powerfully is that God hands us the easy way. Never. We have to do our own work. So I was at a state conference once, and the state president was saying that, if somebody's called to something, then the Spirit will inspire them to do that calling. And I said, that's not true. And he said, well, of course it is. He says, it's in the scriptures. I says, no, it's not. I said, so let's do this. You're going to conduct the state conference. It just happens that for this conference, I'm playing the organ for the stake and the choir and everything else. Let's switch places. You play the organ. We'll call you as the organist right now. So you pray about it and see how well you play the organ. I can give you the answer right now if you want. None.
Not going to happen.
There's a principle that I refer to that I haven't read anywhere, but I've now that the apostles have started to talk about it. And that's what I call incremental revelation. So you take everything you know, and then you pray, and God will take what you know and go like this. And he'll increase it 3 to 5%, maybe. That's on a good day. You still have to keep doing the research. So you keep doing the research into this guy, but I can't count how many stories. Oh, I met this guy. We went to the temple once. I knew he was the one. Yep. And I'm going, not one of those stories has a better chance of success than the others.
Yeah. Or love at first sight, right? Love at first sight. I saw her. I knew she had to be mine. Like, what?
And it's actually possible to take love at first sight and develop it into the real thing. But love at first sight is like a perfectly shaped red delicious apple. Looks really, really good. Now let's see.
So your point is incremental revelation. We share our truth. We get to know someone. We ask them the hard questions, and then as they succeed, if you will, or kind of show us that they're capable of this, then the relationships can start to grow and grow and grow. Yeah.
Bit by bit by bit. And then one day what happens is I've been alive for a very long time. I've held more callings than most people should ever be allowed to hold in their life. I've been raised out in Georgia and other places, so you end up doing everything. Look at the entire history of the church. Look how different the doctrine, not the doctrine, but the way the church is run and many principles of the church that are used now compared to, say, 100 years ago. The first general handbook of the church was 16 pages long. 16. Take a look at it now. And now they're changing every dang program. I've been alive long enough to see the youth programs of the church morph more times than people could possibly imagine. So when everybody says, oh, this new program, I go, hang on. Everybody said that about every other new program. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying anything that it's not great. I love the way the new way things are doing because they're making us more self-reliant. Mm-hmm. But it was incremental with God and his prophets Why would it not be incremental with God and you? Now do you get my point? It's really bit by bit. You don't get a sudden cheating answer.
So Greg, let's just say that I'm new to your material and whatnot, but I'm addicted to, this is another addiction, to relinquishing my decision making. That's what we're talking about here, is like, if somebody else is responsible for my decision making, even if it's God, then I'm off the hook, right? So how do you get out of that, especially when it comes to such an important decision as dating and who you marry? Because that's what's happening, is that they're basically saying, this is what I want. God agrees, so you can't argue with God. And they're letting themselves have an out as far as doing the research and doing what you're talking about.
Well,
how do you get out of that cycle?
And if I can add, women like to be chosen. And I think in this dating world that we're in, oh, he chose me, I win. And now I relinquish that decision making. Like, the man's the one who asked me to marry him, and I'm going to say yes. It's the same kind of concept.
And it's because although we really enjoy the concept of choice or agency, in the world they call it choice, agency, what's the difference? It's the single most important principle, pause, in the universe. Choice. No kidding. Now, we really like it that we have the ability to make choice, but we'll give it up in a second. Because with choice comes responsibility. So we want the choice, but we don't want the responsibility. So we want the choice of choosing a partner, but we really just want God to come down and take the responsibility and go, yeah, it's her. So we're back to incremental revelation again. So what we do is we constantly gather information. We give up our certainty, let's call it. We don't ever give up our choice. In fact, it's a common thing that's been running through the church in the last couple of years. And by church, I mean the membership, not the church itself, of people saying, well, the one thing that you can give to God is your agency. It's the one gift. And I'm going, are you stupid? Didn't we already fight like a war over this, and now you're going to give it up? No, you constantly gather information, and then you relinquish your certainty, your belief that you know everything just a little, and go, so should I see him again? Not should I marry him? Well, yeah, gather a little more information. That doesn't mean that's going to end up being the guy, but there's something down that road you need to learn. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I have done how many things in my life where it felt like the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do, so that I would know for absolute certain that will never work.
That's right. To fail. Failing is like going on a crappy date can be a total learning experience. Yep.
If you want to be alive and be happy, you got to be willing to fail like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like that. I can't remember who did it, but it's like that Mormon ad, the video with two roads, and the dad went down the wrong road, and the kid wondered, why did we have to go down the wrong road? Well,
it was Elder Holland and his father.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yep.
So
there have been times that I've been inspired to do a thing, and it failed like a plane crash. And then later, maybe a year later, I learned, oh, well, that's why I had to do that. Most of the time, I've felt inspired uncounted thousands of times in my life. I've gotten the answer to the question, why? Never. I say, well, but Lord, why? And I can just see him bumping his partner and going, your son, because it's got to be your genes, it's asking why again. We just don't get the answer to that. We just keep going. We keep adding to what we know. It just incrementally enlarges, but we have to do the dang work. And dating is a form of work. It's emotional. It's emotional work.
It's so much work.
Okay, so I'm going to ask what could be potentially an unpopular question, depending on your answer. Unpopular, like on my part. So, number one, I have to tell you, I love your chapter in the Real Love and Dating about sex before marriage. I love your approach before I knew that you were LDS, like, because you don't. It's kind of hard. It took, in fact, I think Angela, you were the one that was like, "Did you know that Greg Baer?" Right? Wasn't it? So, anyways, I liked how you take the judgment and the shame and the condemnation out of it, and it's just like it doesn't make sense to have sex before marriage, and like I love that part of it. So the tough part is, it seems to me, and I don't have any of your, like, I have all the books right here, but I couldn't go in and say which chapter and quote you, but it feels like you come down pretty hard on, like, even kissing during the dating process.
If you go to the reallove.com website, I'm almost sure, if I'm wrong, you can write me, you can email me personally, and I'll send you this blog that I wrote. But I'm almost sure you can find in the master index on reallove.com, I've indexed thousands of blogs and videos, and one of them is called Kissing. And I actually describe, I'm not kidding, in detail, step by step, how, what kind of kissing is going to end up getting you in trouble. Because I've talked to so many thousand people, LDS and not. I've stood up in front of, I've done hundreds of seminars, and one of them was with like 1,000 singles. And one person said, it just sounds like you're being all religious and old fashioned to say don't have sex before marriage. And I said, maybe I'm wrong. Let's do a test. So I said, everybody raise their hand who has had great sexual experiences with somebody. Well, every hand went up. And I said, now keep your hand up if that initial great sexual experience led to a long-lasting, fulfilling relationship. 0 hands. I said, Your Honor, I rest my case. The audience was done. I said, the problem is it's a distraction. It's part of drama. It's kind of like eating dessert before the main course, or frankly, just eating dessert. It just doesn't work out. Is it fun? Oh, no doubt. Do you feel closer to the person? Yes, for a little while. There are a whole lot of things that have really positive uses in one place, but not another. I love to work outside and cut down trees, and I love an axe, but axes are very seldom useful at the dining room table. Sex can add any form of sex, including sexual kissing.
Just kissing.
Because everybody knows the difference. Come on. You don't kiss your sister like the girl that you're trying to entice to become a partner. Everybody knows what sexual kissing is. Although in the article, I described kissing pretty explicitly. It's just a distraction. And now, every time you see that person, you don't know whether you're attracted to who they are, or are you attracted to that brief, dramatic feeling you had when you were fill in the blank? Whatever.
Yeah. I just listened to a song that the lyrics is something like, it's funny how red flags can feel like butterflies.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, no.
And waving in the breeze, red flags, even themselves, are pretty.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, cool. Well, I'll find that article and whatnot.
If you don't find it, you write me and ask me, and then you can disseminate it to the group. I just sometimes forget where a thing is located after a few thousand files.
Sure.
So is that your main advice to singles when it comes to kissing? Is sort of you mentioned this article. I don't know if you're just describing kissing, but are you describing the process of, like, I don't know. Should we give our kisses away like pretzels, or?
In this article, I describe exactly when to kiss, how long to kiss. I'm not kidding.
Okay, interesting.
Why? Because we need it.
Right.
When I go to put together the trailer for my ATV, I don't want instructions that just say, put all the parts together. I want specifics. Well, whoever gives us specific instructions about what kind of kissing is distracting and what kind is binding, nobody ever does that. So, well, I went, let's do that. And
Right.
the people who have followed those instructions have done very well. And
Interesting.
the people who don't, who of course are always the exceptions, um, it doesn't go so well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in the dating scene, and this could be awful, there are those with reputations. Like I know at least even girlfriends of mine, they meet a guy, they're kissing right away, lots of kissing, and I'm thinking that guy is an idiot. Like, what are you doing with him? And uh, uh, I don't know. And then I feel like, oh, should I be more like aggressive physically or whatever? And it's we get into this pattern where we're constantly comparing ourselves with other people's experiences, and it's just kind of a mess. So yeah.
What kissing and any form of, because as I said, kissing can be sexual. Any kind of sexual activity artificially inflates the intimacy of the relationship. That's the problem with it.
Right.
I don't do a moral thing with people, because I talk with people who have no concept of God, religion, morals. I don't care about any of that stuff. It's just it's
Yeah.
artificially inflating, and now you don't know where
Right.
you are.
Yeah, it makes it common sense as opposed to a moral issue, and
Yeah.
that will reach more people.
It would be like me taking you up in a plane, and planes always have two whatever they call them. You can tell that I don't fly. The steering thing, and I'm the primary pilot. And at some point, we're even flight. It's a beautiful day. It's sunshiny, and I just say, "Oh, I'm going to take a nap. You fly the plane." You know what? You can get away with that for a little while, and then it starts to rain, and then the clouds come, and then there's a downdraft, and we're all dead.
Mm, awesome. I don't know, Angela, if you have more questions. I don't know how long. I mean, we talked to you all day, Greg. One thing I did want to mention is that I just recently read the Post-Childhood Distress book, and I love this book. I can feel a shift. It's almost like you wrote all the other books, and then you're like, wait a second, and your data, and I love it. In fact, I think this one might be the most important book of all of them, because it goes back to your beginning, right?
My wife Donna says that I wrote all the other books so I could write that book,
Huh.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the real love and PCSD, it's just like PTSD, but the T is a C for childhood. So post childhood stress disorder explains, I know it sounds like too big a claim, explains almost every unproductive behavior you have in your life. You want to understand yourself? Go read that book.
Hmm. Yeah. It's beautiful. And it's what's, oh, go ahead.
No, I got nothing.
I love the fact, because I know so many people that are like, well, I basically have the symptoms, but I haven't had anything huge. Like I've never been, mugged or raped, or, witnessed a shooting, or, and yet so it's kind of like the whole time people have wanted to include themselves, but they have felt disallowed.
The,
And this
the,
is beautiful.
the way people most often ask that question is, why is my life so screwed up? I've never experienced any significant trauma. Oh, yes, you have. All it takes is to not receive sufficient unconditional love as a child. And when people say, well, I was loved as a child, almost everybody defends their parents. Why? Because their parents taught them to. Uh, well, I was unconditionally loved. When you screwed up, do you recognize the sound? Or that look? Yeah.
Mhm.
To a child, you just as well pick up a shovel and smack them in the face, because that's how it feels to a child. If you have any doubt about that, go pick somebody's small child and do that with them. No, don't. But it's very
I have
predictable.
two at home. Yeah.
It's horrifyingly wounding to a child to receive the disapproval of an adult. And that's all it takes to destroy you. I could talk to you all day long. You guys, if you want to arrange something in the future for your whole group or blah, blah, I don't know. We'll figure something out. But have fun with this. Apparently some of you are going on a cruise or something. And
Yeah.
now I'm jealous.
Saturday.
I want to go on the I want to go on the cruise. But so you guys have fun, and I'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Greg.
Love you guys.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye.
See ya.